arrested yesterday on charges of threatening House Speaker Nancy Pelosi about passage of health care reform, got his ideas from Fox News. We know this because, in our fourth story tonight, the defendant's mother says so. The defendant is Greg Justy, a 48-year-old San Francisco man with previous convictions and a history of making threats. He's accused this time of repeatedly calling Speaker Pelosi's office and home and her husband's business, reciting her home address, and saying she should oppose health care reform if she wanted to see her home again. As MediaMatters.com has chronicled, Pelosi has spent the last year under blistering attack from Fox News hosts, portraying her and health care reform as fundamental threats to America itself. Bill O'Reilly referring to her Fidel Castro stuff, and to her as Marie Antoinette, who was, of course, beheaded in the French Revolution. Sarah Palin putting crosshairs on members of Congress, telling followers, don't retreat, instead reload. Glenn Beck talking about poisoning Pelosi, claiming Democrats carried out a coup, hammering a nail in the coffin of America and bringing about the end of America as we know it, because now President Obama can control every aspect of our lives. Greg Justy's mother blames Fox News.
Greg frequently gets in with a group of people that have really radical ideas and that are not consistent with myself or the rest of the family, and which gets him into problems. And apparently I would say this must be another one that somehow he's gotten onto, either by I say Fox News or all of those that are really radical, and that's where he comes from.
Shepard Smith of Fox said on air last month that some of those shouting end of the world, quote, maybe don't believe it. Now a new Forbes magazine profile of Beck confirms it. Beck's only real interest is making more than his current $32 million a year as a man of the people. Quote, I could give a flying crap about the political process. We're an entertainment company. He has these pictures, the magazine reports, in his office. Ronald Reagan, who was in favor of the START Treaty, Paul Harvey, Orson Welles, Bob Hope, Jack Benny, and Walt Disney. No Thomas Paine. And, of course, if Mr. Beck really believed Democrats were turning America socialist and destroying capitalism, why would he bother to try to earn $32 million a year if the government's going to take it from him anyway? Let's bring in Chris Hayes, the Washington editor of The Nation magazine, who I think makes a little less than $32 million, but not quite.
How did you guess?
Just a wild one. Good to see you in the flesh.
Good to see you, too.
If Fox News viewers are crazy enough or easily led enough, which is the principle to it, to believe that America is under assault from within by essentially a fraudulent government, isn't taking arms up to defend America versus the government, isn't that, if the premise can be illogical, but the follow-up is logical, and that's the danger, right?
That's right. I mean, look, I tend to be a really sort of free speech absolutist about this stuff, and I think you sort of share that ethos that you want to be careful about drawing these distinctions.
Yes.
That said, there is increasingly violent rhetoric, and we know from the Southern Poverty Law Center's latest report, we know from the Harris poll, this stuff is really seeping into the grassroots, and there is a really kind of enraged and violent ethos that is being stoked, and I think it really is problematic, and it does impart some kind of moral culpability ultimately.
The Fox hosts are already on record blaming Pelosi for inciting violence against herself, which is, of course, a wonderful way out of a complicated situation. Thus, the odds against seeing this story turn them into people who say, we have, the scales have fallen from our eyes, we better cool this. The odds against that are what?
Well, they're zero,
because
right now there is no, I mean, this is one of the things I think that's dangerous and disturbing. There's only incentives to fuel the fire. Right. The market incentives all push that way in terms of fundraising, in terms of audience share. Everything pushes in the direction of extremity, and nothing pushes against it. And so that's the really problematic thing. It's locked into this kind of vicious cycle in which stoking and stoking and stoking is what is getting people ratings, what getting people attention. I don't see any incentive or space for people to be the brakes on that.
We can say also that maybe there are links, and Fox can respond, well, there's no evidence of links, but this Jim David Atkinson is the example I always use, and not because he had books on his shelf, but this is the guy who walked into a Unitarian church in Tennessee and shot the place up and killed 2 people because he said in writing in his manifesto that he could not kill the 100 people in Bernard Goldberg's book of the liberals who were destroying the country. That's not, Bernard Goldberg is on Fox News every night virtually. This isn't debatable that there's a link. So what has to happen I mean, there was a link in that case, and we have the Justy link to whatever degree a man's mother is useful in this situation. We'd think that probably she knows something of what's going on. What has to happen for society at large to look at Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes and the people who purvey this stuff as pariahs?
Well, I mean, what you hope is that something really awful doesn't happen. I mean, and again, I don't want to be an alarmist, but look, I mean, the last time that we did have an extremely empowered and enraged radical right, there was the largest, at the time, domestic terrorist attack on American soil. And we've already seen domestic terrorist attacks or plotted domestic terrorist attacks. And so I think there really has to be a point at which you just put certain things outside of the spectrum of sort of civil discourse.
How?
I don't know. I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, you call them out.
I don't want to put you on the spot because I have no answer to that either.
Look, I mean, I believe in John Stuart Mill that the response to bad speech is more speech, right? And you call them out as much as possible, but you know, again, it seems like there's a structural problem here that has to be kind of unpacked. And I think that hopefully what you see are some people on the right, you know, standing up to say, look, this is fundamentally, we want to be a democratic nonviolent movement. Those are two incredibly important words, not a revolutionary movement. And those two things are really distinct.
Maybe we could pledge it with everything from the left, starting with those exact words. Literally every speech given by somebody on the left or in the Democratic Party or even a moderate or independent should start by saying, we are pledged to nonviolence.
Yes, we are a democratic nonviolence movement.
Exactly. We are, yes, we are an American. There it is. We are an American nonviolence.
That's right.
We got all, we wave the flag and everything else. Chris Hayes of The Nation. Great. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
And what about the places so far right-wing that Fox is considered part of their problem? We'll take you inside a Tea Party meeting with a congressman in Louisiana. But fortunately, Tiger Woods is back, restoring America's will to live.